Good morning. It's Friday, June 10th, and President Zelensky of the Ukraine has been telling the world that because of the Russian blockade of the harbors in the Black Sea, Ukraine cannot supply the rest of the world with food. So forget about the war and everything. Ukraine is a breadbasket for the world. And those ships, those Russian ships that are blockading that harbor, are preventing the distribution of whatever food the Ukraine has available to send out. Who knows what's going on in that country with respect to any kind of farming or anything. But meanwhile, the blockade is there, and we need to remove those ships from the harbor. So, we are reluctant, of course, to send our Navy, or our true Navy, or aircraft carriers and battleships or whatever we have. But we have something else we could use to clear that harbor. We have a fleet of nuclear submarines. So why don't we just sail a nuclear submarine or two in there and torpedo the Russian ships in the harbor? What do you think about that? The excuse would be the world is starving. So Zelensky is not the only one that warned that millions of people may starve if Russia continues its blockade of the Ukraine ports. The UN Secretary General made similar remarks on Wednesday, saying the war threatens to unleash an unprecedented wave of hunger and destitution around the world. So that's what the UN Secretary General says. But is he prepared to take any action? The UN can't do anything. They have no fighting force. They can't gather a bunch of countries together and attack the Russian ships. Maybe he could do that. Wouldn't that be a wonderful thing if the UN got together and said, the heck with everything else, send as much as we need to destroy those Russian ships? Why are they depending on the rest of the world to save these 192 nations that can't get out of their own way? Yes, I recognize the fact that there are so many different countries in the UN, and they all think differently. And considering that the democracy, the democratic countries are a very small percentage of all the countries in the UN, the democratic countries don't represent more than 30% of the rest of the world. So many, many countries who have dictators are on Putin's side just because they believe in autocratic rule. So that's the situation we're confronted with. Ukraine is not the only victim of this war, because Ukraine, being the breadbasket, or one of the breadbaskets of the world, anything that interrupts the food supply is a major crisis. And it's probably reaching the limits now. So what are we going to do? Are we going to call Putin on the telephone and say, hey, Putin, Vlad, do us a favor, move your ships aside so we can ship out some food? That's not going to happen. And the UN is powerless, and they can say whatever they want. They stand up. I don't think anybody listens to them anyhow. It's an organization that was founded with good intentions, but is incapable of doing much of that could be done. So there they are. The harbor is blockaded. And really, really and truly, there's very little that anybody can do about that, except maybe the U.S. and a couple of their allies who really have a decent navy. Maybe Japan would help out. China won't help. We know that China's not going to help. So if they want to release the harbor, it's probably going to fall on the good old USA. And we have the tools to do that. As I said before, we have a fleet of submarines. They could go in there. And then we could turn around and run away and deny everything. No, we never sent in the submarines. We never torpedoed those ships in the harbor. What are you talking about? Are you crazy accusing us of that kind of thing? But I'll tell you something. Even if somebody else did it, we would be blamed. The U.S. would be blamed. So we might as well do it. We might as well go in there and figure out a way to clear the harbor. And maybe the way to do that is to just notify those Russian ships that if they don't get their ass out of the harbor in 2 or 3 days, we're going to torpedo you. How about that? We don't torpedo them. We threaten them. How about we step up to the plate and threaten them? How about Biden gets on the air and says, if you don't move those ships, Vlad, we're going to torpedo them. And what are you going to do about that? Yes, maybe that would be World War III. But maybe it wouldn't be World War III. Maybe we would strike a vicious blow, and maybe the people behind Putin would rally against him. There can't be too many people in Russia that agree with Putin's policies at this point. Many of them don't know what's going on, I'm sure. I mean, they've been put in some kind of communications blackout, so to speak. But I think that we have the weaponry to get rid of the ships in that harbor. But it's do we want to start World War III? And I agree, we don't want to start World War III, and we have this nuclear threat that Russia has that we have to contend with that. So it's a very, very dicey situation. But when you consider that the 44 million people who lived in Ukraine and some who got away and many who are dying is but a small percentage of what's really going to happen in this world if they don't get food, if the rest of these people don't get food. Many more millions are going to starve to death. So it's a dicey situation and a very difficult situation to be in. And I don't know if I'm willing to take a chance on nuclear, because nuclear would be much more disastrous maybe than nations starving. Who the heck knows? So I leave you with those crazy thoughts this morning, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.